Last week, City of Calgary Ward 12 Councillor Evan Spencer brought forward a notice of motion that would have authorized city administration to begin negotiations with ATCO, which is a Calgary, actually an Alberta utility, regarding incentives on two solar farms that they're already building in the city on Brownfield sites. This is kind of an interesting project. So I'm going to talk to him about that. Welcome to the interview, Evan.
Thank you, Markham. Appreciate you reaching out and I look forward to the conversation.
Well, hey, I used to live in Ward 12 when I lived in Calgary, so fond memories. It's
Oh, good.
lovely. It's a lovely part of the city.
It
Now,
is.
brownfield sites are those that have already had industrial development on them, and I understand that these sites, there are no other kind of development can go on there because they're contaminated.
Correct. Yeah, very limited usage. Uh, there's many years of fertilizer production that happened just adjacent to those two properties. And part of their process was airing out some of their byproducts on those fields.
So, okay, so the ATCO is already constructing these solar farms. I understand one will be done this spring and another one later in the year. Why did you want to? I mean, normally, we argue that wind and solar now are the lowest cost form of generating electricity. They don't need incentives. Why did you bring forward the proposal to provide incentives for them?
Yeah, so these two projects find themselves in a pretty unique niche. I certainly would have likely tackled this initiative from a slightly different angle if I had it all over to do again. But ultimately, it's going to get to the same place, which is we have these two parcels of land that have a particular mill rate that is for the city of Calgary. Most of these projects find themselves in outlying municipalities where the taxes are quite a bit lower, which obviously increases their pro forma, makes them a viable project. Here in Calgary, where they find themselves, they were going to be dealing with quite a bit more municipal taxes. So the ask was for a conversation, and ultimately that's what I was trying to move forward. Was an opportunity for ATCO to interact with the city of Calgary on these two given projects to talk about if an incentive structure of some sort could be brought to bear on these two.
But what's the advantage of the incentive? Is it to get? No, I understand that there are approximately 60 other brownfield sites within the city that would be suitable for development on solar farms. So is the idea to provide the incentive so that you can expand this kind of development within the city?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, anytime the city engages in conversations like this to maximize the potential, anybody that's looking to invest similarly in low carbon initiatives will take notice, and we stand to attract a whole lot more of that to our geographical boundaries. When you think of the opportunities within the municipal boundaries of Calgary, they're going to be few and select, but I think on the aggregate could potentially be quite compelling. Like some examples would be land that are sitting idle waiting for development on the outskirts of the city, but is within the municipal boundary. That if the right incentive structure was there, I could see a developer signing that over to a low carbon power generation. There's canals, for example, within Ward 12 that move water around. Right now is open to the sun. Not much. Maybe you could cover. There's lots of different ways, hopefully creatively, that projects could come in if they saw a receptivity on the behalf of the city to talk about making sure that it worked for them.
Well, I can certainly see on the brownfield site. I mean, if you've got land that's contaminated, there's nothing else you can do with it. It's not making, maybe it's not generating any tax revenue for the city. Then this would seem like a perfect place to build solar farms, and then at least the city is generating some tax revenue from it.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
sorry, go ahead.
well, I'm kind of curious. I understand that the city's goal is to produce 40% of its power from renewables by 2050, and I have to say, I thought it would be 100%. I'm a little surprised it's only 40.
Right. I mean, the climate strategy that we have here in the city, I think, is ambitious for, especially considering the city that it's in. We are in a constant push-pull in Calgary around this because of the legacy energy industry. and the natural tension that those two poles create. So I hope that we hit and succeed and go past the 40%. That would be amazing. And certainly conversations like this will help us realize that kind of a future.
I mean, Calgary has a lot of industry in it, and it's looking to attract clean tech industry. And with passage of the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act and the recognition that if we're going to switch to clean energy, we need all of the clean energy industries to build the solar panels and the wind, the wind turbines and the batteries and all of that. And clean electricity, when I talk to experts, in the US or Europe, and I ask them, what's the first thing at the top of your list when you're siting a plant? And they say, clean electricity. That's an absolute must. So if clean electricity is like the foundation of the 21st century economy, then having more of it has got to be in Calgary's best interest. Is that not recognized within the city as much as it maybe should be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great observation. I would point to the fact, and this is something I learned along this discovery journey of working on this, was that Alberta is actually a hotbed for clean energy investment. That so much of what is happening just in this last year found itself, I think it was up close to 1,400 megawatts of renewable projects came on in Alberta, which dwarfed other jurisdictions for a whole host of reasons. And I believe that's a 1-year synopsis or sample size. So I don't know how we compare if you look at a broader scope or over, say, a 10-year period, but that's encouraging. And certainly something that, for the reasons you just outlined, we should be looking to continue to support and to celebrate and to signal to the rest of the world that we're a great place for these kinds of projects.
Now, some of your colleagues on council have been there for a while, and they were there when I lived in Calgary. And I can only imagine how they responded. So tell us how the discussion went around the council table when you introduced the motion.
Yeah, when it first came forward, I had one colleague with few words express his dismay that this was coming forward. It does feel, because of the political realities, particularly in Calgary, but Alberta writ large, there's just a natural tendency to torque these conversations in a certain political direction, which is unfortunate. I think there are great hotbeds of conversation. You think of the Calgary Climate Hub. Calgary has the Calgary Climate Panel. Just really great, smart people looking at all the numbers and going, this makes sense. We need to continue tracking in this direction. But that obviously is not the commonly held narrative in the wider public for a whole host of reasons. So we have a bit of an uphill battle here to try and help people understand why this makes sense and just how viable it is. I know as I had conversations on these two particular projects, we just naturally ended up talking about a 400 megawatt project that was brought online in Calgary, or in Alberta rather, and just what that means for the future of the province. These are actively changing where we get our energy from, and are going to pave a bold new path forward for every energy consumer in this province. It's just, there's a disruption that's happening, and when change is afoot, there's always going to be people that are super excited about it and people that are not.
Well, we do a lot of work on this at Energy Media and talk to experts in the United States, Europe, Asia. And my observation on this is that if you don't have a ready source of clean, affordable, reliable electricity, you are simply not going to be able to attract the kind of investment that you need for critical mineral smelting or EV batteries or hydrogen, or all of those require that as it's like table stakes, right? In a poker game, it's like table stakes. If you don't have the table stakes, you don't get to sit at the table. And so perhaps, eventually, and hopefully sooner rather than later, Calgary will we'll figure that out. But look, in fairness, the council did in fact pass an amended version of the motion 7-4.
Yes. Yeah, I was encouraged by that. Had one of my colleagues in particular swoop in. I mean, leading up to that, it really ended up being concern around the word negotiate, specifically singling out ATCO, and certainly was not my intention to narrow the scope. It just, they were the first at the gate. They were the catalyst of this conversation. In the whereas, it talked about the broader picture and the broader incentive program, but that, as it does in politics sometimes the plot gets lost, and it definitely was getting lost in the news cycle and with some of my colleagues. So I'm hoping we salvaged it, and that when it comes back for a report, it'll be a much different conversation.
Well, Evan, we'll be watching this story with great interest, and thank you very much for this.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you, Markham.